welcome. And we have a panel of 7 artists. Actually, we only have 6 thus far. T had not arrived when I started this screen share. But I know we have John Hasegawa, Veronica, Arquilevich, Guzmán, better known as Maya Ceramics, Dwayne Sackey, Linda Dalal Sawaya, and Anshula Tayal. And I'm so excited to be together with this group. Great opportunity for us to learn about their creative process, their cultural influences, and become familiar with their work. OPA is grateful for the support of many foundations and organizations and agencies that are contributing to the good of our community, including the Multnomah County Cultural Council, the Regional Arts and Culture Council, the Outson Foundation, the Oregon Arts Commission, and Metro.gov, and also people like you, because people make contributions in many, many ways, be it monetary or otherwise. And that's what keeps our community going. So we're going to move to our next slide. We have some announcements. Ceramic Showcase is coming up. I know a number of you are participating. A lot of you are participating in it. I know I am, and I'm excited about it. It's been 2 years since we had an in-person event. We're meeting on Mother's Day this year, and it's the largest show, sale, and educational experience with ceramics in Oregon, and some people say in other, large part of the country. We're open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The hours differ. Please check our posts for exact hours. There will be altogether over 200 artists that are not only from the OPA, but also from the guilds, the gathering of the guilds. Oh, that's a very light touch with my finger. Sorry. I moved that and didn't mean to. We have not we, but the Northwest Woodfire Conference is happening June 2nd through the 4th in Newberg, Oregon. And if you Google Northwest Woodfire Conference, you'll get all the information you need. And it sounds like it's going to be a great event. OPA is taking out a table there to represent our organization. If you'd like to volunteer at the conference, we'd be delighted for you to help us out at the table. Here's some other volunteer opportunities with OPA. And volunteering is a great way to meet people and support OPA's success. And our success is your success. We all get successful together. So showcase volunteers in a variety of roles for 3-hour shifts are still needed for showcase. If you're interested, please contact Miranda, and her there she is, and her contact info is online. And also, Miranda, if you would put that in the chat for later, that would be awesome. We need table volunteers for the Woodfire Conference. We are looking for a team member for our social media team. If you are good at social media and you'd like to help us get the word out on our events and activities, please contact Miranda. We also need an editor for our News You Can Use newsletter. It's not a newsletter, is it? It's a periodical. No, it's a weekly or a monthly, one or the other. Bi-monthly, bi-weekly, something like that. It comes out regularly and it has all the good news in it. So please contact Miranda if you'd like to edit News You Can Use. We are looking for a volunteer coordinator. We have so many volunteers that we need a coordinator to help make sure that people find the work that they are good at and can connect with the people who can help them. Two of our board positions are vacant right now. There's a great opportunity to join the OPA board. We need a board treasurer and we need a board communications director. So if either of those positions is interesting to you, please contact Miranda. Miranda is our executive director, and she is administrating all of these details and all of the big projects as well. And she does a great job and is very easy to talk to. I want to thank you for coming tonight. And I do hope that you'll consider donating to support OPA's projects. There's a donation button on our website. Tonight, we have 6 to 7 artists who are going to be sharing their clay stories and how their cultural background influences their creative process and their work. Each person will present for about 10 minutes. And during that time, I'm going to run a slideshow with images of their work. That slideshow is not going to be synced to their talk. It's just provided as illustration of their work so that you can see what their work looks like. If you've got questions for our presenters tonight, please write them in the chat if you want to. And that we will wait until everybody's done, and then we'll do the questions. So, are there any questions right now before we get started? Oh, hi, everybody. I'm seeing a lot more faces than when we first started. Welcome. Glad to see you. T is here. Very good. So good to see you. Welcome, everyone. We're quite pleased and excited to be hosting this panel. Without further ado, I'm going to then invite John to be our, let's see, I'm looking for the spotlight. Oh, you know what? Did I lose the spotlight? I think I did. Miranda, could you pin John?
Spotlight, you mean?
Spotlight him. And
then
there
everybody.
We go. Did that work?
Should I disappear?
No, it's okay. Hi, my name is John. This is my wife, Lily. She'll talk a little bit later.
We're sharing a computer.
We're sharing a computer. So hello, everyone. And I just want to thank OPA for having the show at the Governor's Mansion and letting us, the artists, speak about what makes us awesome and unique people. I'm super excited about that. And I'm just super glad that we all get to talk about our clay practice. It's just really incredible. So let's just jump right in. So my name is John. Think of myself as 100% American. At the same time, I'm 100% Japanese. And because if you look at my genetic heritage, I'm 100% Japanese. Both my mom and dad are Japanese, and I'm third generation Japanese American, but in some ways I feel like a second generation Japanese. And the Japanese American experience has always been counted by generation, and each generation has its own unique kind of circumstances that they deal with. And for me, that always comes out in my artwork and my practice. To kind of follow that history, after World War II, or even during World War II, the Japanese were kind of pariahs in the community. And my mom's family was displaced and put in internment camp. And when they were released from camp, they really had nowhere to go. And this was at the end of World War II. And so when they immigrated, they kind of, I consider it like an immigrated to Seattle to live. They weren't really accepted into the overall society of the culture there. So the Japanese had to form their own everything, their own social groups, their own churches. I was on a Japanese basketball team. I was in a Japanese Boy Scout troop. And that experience was both uniquely American because the Japanese really wanted to adopt everything American. They wanted the Japanese children, to be 100% American as quickly as possible. So that we weren't even taught how to speak Japanese at all. So that was just part of the experience of how we could integrate as quickly as possible. And so today, my children actually don't have to face that because they're accepted within the society. There's a structure for them to be part of mainstream society. But my parents weren't really part of that. And so I feel that reflects in my work and how I make things. Like when you look at these surface designs that I do, I'm really looking at Japanese designs and patterns, and then I'm implementing them on the types of vessels that I would use, which is a coffee cup, which is not necessarily a Japanese vessel, right? So I feel that these pieces mirror my attitude toward life, right? I don't make teacups, right? Because I really don't drink tea, but I drink, and I'm more of an Americana kind of thing, American coffee, right? The American coffee mug. And so those are the types of things that I use every day. But I use these Asian patterns, and some of the 8 patterns are very fundamental, so they're seen in a lot of other cultures. But these are the patterns that I see on Japanese fabric. So my wife here is a fiber artist, and so through her influence and seeing how the fabric patterns that she looks at, or the Japanese patterns that they use on fabric, I'm trying to adopt those things onto the surface of my cups. So in a way, I always feel like these vessels are kind of like me, right? They're Japanese pattern on the outside, but they're designed to hold coffee on the inside, more of the American Seattle way, right, of coffee. And I want to continue exploring these ideas through my work, but I just really am enjoying making these cups and having just a really good time with these surfaces, and want to keep exploring these ideas. That's about it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Wonderful. Awesome. I'm going to stop sharing now. Beautiful. And your work is beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Anshula. I'm looking here.
Hi. Thank you for having me here. I am very excited, but a little nervous. I'm not a great public speaker. So I am Anshula Tayal. I am an Indian-born potter here in Portland. I moved to the US in 1992, and then went back to India for 14 years, and then moved again to the US in 2015. And that's when I started, formally learning ceramics, and I started at PCC Rock Creek. So my ceramic work is a combination of my education or experience as an architect, a former architect, which taught me to focus on the form, shape, and design, and my obsession and love for the textile art of India, as well as the art and architecture and the patterns and the imagery of India. So India is known for its intricate designs, vibrant colors, and patterns. You see these designs in fabrics through the weaving process, the embroidery, dyeing, printing, and batik. And you also see the similar style of colors and patterns in the different art forms of India. May it be tribal art or the mythological art, which shows a lot of god and goddesses. And they were done on paper, cloth, leaves, bark of trees, and even on walls directly. And the third place where you see a lot of images and designs, patterns and carvings, is the old temples, the mosques, the palaces, and the big houses called havelis. So basically, a lot of imagery, a lot of patterns, a lot of texture is available in India. So, and then you can simply say that the designs and the patterns are basically floral or nature inspired, mythological inspired from gods and goddesses, and the Islamic or the Mughal inspired, the geometrical patterns from Persia. So in short, I have a lot of patterns, images, stories, styles of work to be used as inspiration. And now a little bit about my clay story, how I incorporate these design stories into my work and into my pottery. So India is divided into 27 states, and each state has a culturally diverse each state is culturally diverse because of the stories, the mythology, the materials available. So I pick up a state in my mind and I go through there, do a little bit of research with the stories, the kind of architecture there is, the textile, the art. I go through all of that. And I have traveled a lot in India, so I do know the states quite well, and I know their the textile industry, this architectural style, and then I incorporate all of that. I make little stories in my mind. I draw these designs, I redraw them, simplify the designs, and create my own stylized version of the same. The design has the essence of the art form, but it has a little bit of me too, because I have certain elements that I incorporate in each design. I have to simplify it because otherwise I'll be spending days on one cup of tea. A teacup will take me days to finish. So I use both hand building and wheel throwing techniques to create my pieces. And I love making big pieces that you are seeing in the slideshow that I have been most recognized for. But I also focus on functional tableware. Food is another one of my passions, and I have always enjoyed serving in colorful bowls and platters, inspiring me to make my own bowls and platters and the designs. So once these pieces, so I hand build them. Once these pieces are ready, I work on the surface decoration. I use multiple techniques like sgraffitos, painting, carving, wax resist, paper resist, and slip trailing to create my patterns. I use underglazes and colored slips that I have created for the color palette, the choice of colors that I need. And even the glazes I have designed so that they give me the earthy tones that the Indian palette has. So I give these patterns and images a new home on my ceramic pieces, hoping that they will remain permanently and a lot more people can use and see them and enjoy the patterns. It gives me happiness to serve food in a bowl that looks like a sari or a platter with Islamic geometrical patterns. They do become the center of conversations usually, so it's fun. And this whole series of work is, I call it Kalakriti, the imagery memoir. Kala means art and Kriti means creation, which together is creation of art, and which is also my imagery memoir. It's like who I am, basically. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Awesome. We are moving on to Linda. Thank you, Anshula. That was lovely.
Thank you.
Hello, and thank you so much, OPA and Stephanie Nagorka, who I don't know if she even said her name yet. She's been doing great things with OPA. And so I'm honored and delighted to be here with these amazing people and this beautiful, high quality, excellent work. I'm sort of a newbie, but a little bit about my family background. My parents were immigrants from Lebanon. They both came from the same small mountain village in the north of Lebanon. And they met in Los Angeles in 28 2008, I think, right before the big crash. Anyway, they ended up getting married in Detroit. My mom was in Detroit with her parents. My grandfather, who was a doctor and a multilingual person, and he was an amazing, I knew him. He lived with us till I was 5. Me and my 4 older sisters were all born in LA. So I grew up speaking Spanish, and kind of like in John's family, I consider myself first generation, but my older sisters wanted to be assimilated, and they told my parents not to speak that funny language. So Spanish, actually I speak Spanish better than I speak Arabic. But we had, my mom and grandmother were both craftspeople and did crocheting and knitting and all kinds of handwork, and of course cooking. I have a cookbook that I made with my mom and grandmother's recipes. So, and I'm a gardener. So we had a beautiful place with beautiful Oriental rugs, and I would kind of pace around the rugs, appreciating the patterns, and our home was filled with really a lot of beautiful stuff. And I actually started ceramics in the 60s. I went to LA City College, took a couple of ceramics classes, and then I ended up at UCLA for my 3rd and 4th year at college, and I took ceramics there. And then that was, the late 60s. And then my major was environmental design, but I ended up moving from LA to the Santa Cruz Mountains, and I met these lovely friends who were ceramic artists, and they taught me how to make sprig molds. And I didn't know they were called sprig molds then, but using found objects to make things. And I made buttons and cabinet knobs and sold those in California before I came to Oregon. And then I ended up working in graphic design for many years and started painting in the 80s and got back to ceramics in the 90s. I took a workshop at what was OSAC then, Oregon School of Arts and Crafts. And there was a workshop painting and drawing on clay. So since I was a painter, I did a whole body of 2-dimensional work where we had clay slabs, and we drew from life models on the clay slabs, bisque fired them, and then learned how to do cold finishes on them. And so I did that body of work in the 90s, and I love making faces. So then I finally came back to clay just in 2018, back to OCAC, and took a narrative sculpture class. So this one image that you're seeing right now is an arabesque plate. It's an octagon shape, which I love, and I've actually used it for years in my painting. And I came to start using it in ceramic to make these plates, which I call arabesque. And I use a variety of, I use stencils, I use sgraffito, I use slip image transfer. I took a class in 2019, Image on Clay, with Shanda Zaya, and we learned a lot of image transfer processes. And so I like working with a lot of texture and color and pattern. And I'm sort of a very intuitive artist. I just kind of make stuff. And my mom, God rest her soul, was doing ceramics into her 90s. So I have her kiln. So she was making things, and so I'm lucky I have her electric kiln. So when I was doing the porcelain in the 70s, the buttons and cabinet knobs, I was doing reduction cone 10 with iron oxide, porcelain with iron oxide, and now I'm using a mid-range porcelain. So I'm firing to cone 5-6 and using underglazes. And this particular heart, I started making this series of heart vases because my mom was buying some greenware forms that were already cast, like slip cast, And she gave to me a little heart-shaped vase with a decal on it. And it's small, it's maybe 4 inches tall. And I use that for my manicure tools. So I decided I would copy that form. And so I've made these little heart vases, and I call them Alice in Wonderland vases. So like I said, I'm pretty intuitive. I make some functional pieces, and then I'm making more recently these little maquettes, which we already saw one of, little invented people that I hope to maybe make into larger sculptures. So yeah, it's ceramics is challenging, and it's so good to have my hands back in clay, and I'm just really grateful to be with you all, and so thankful for your taking time to look at my work.
All right, yeah. I think we are moving on to tea next. Is that right? Do I have my list properly here? Yes, tea.
Hey,
Welcome.
thank you for having me. I'm kind of like my hair. Okay, I'm come from a little village in central Vietnam. My whole life is basically what you call it, by default. I came here after the war, or when the war ended. My dad worked for US, so we came here, sponsored by a Catholic church, and went to a Catholic school. Then let me see, I didn't know much of English, so most of the time I spent with nuns and priests. And express myself, I went through drawing, and during the time I only draw wartime thing. And the bishop who run the school and all the nun and priests send my work everywhere and kind of support me on my work. But most of all is a sculpture teacher. And then that's how I get to know him, because he'd been to Vietnam as a military guy. So anyway, then thing kind of moved along. And when the Pope came to Des Moines for a big mass, I got to get involved in the setting up the whole thing. And then I win a merit award, state of Iowa merit award, and that's how I went to college. And when I go to college, I want to be a teacher, to go back to my high school to be to teach there, and it didn't went that direction. And that's when I learned pottery. Is in college, but it was more of a. For me, the definition of art is to master all medium, and clay happened to be one, and I started out as a sculptor. And clay just happened to be the medium of the time. And I discovered the wheel. I can move clay into form that I can beat them up and connect them together. And then after college, I went and teach for a year, and I discovered that wasn't my route. So then I went to Florida. I traveled all over the place. Went to Florida trying to make a living as a painter, paintings, and that was hard. And I was starving. And one day I walked into a library, and somebody in Texas was looking for a potter. And I say, hey, I'm going to go there and wing it. And when I got there, he didn't know much about pottery either, but he looking for 2 college kids to to start the pottery firm. And that was in McQueenie. And then about a year later, a Hungarian showed up, and that's when kind of thing changes. And that's how I became a potter. So I become a potter by default. I wasn't making any money. So I found that making useful thing kind of lead me to make a living. And so I was there for about 6-7 years, and it allowed me to travel all over the world doing pottery. I can go into any pottery and say, I can throw for you. And then that's how it all became. And I met all these people, but Texas is always was my base. And when then I decided to go to the Northwest, and I came to the Northwest and start doing all these things. But most of all is when I was trying to make a living as painter in Texas or in Florida, and a old painter, kind of my hero, and they say it's your own damn fault, and that's what I live by, basically the principle of what I do. And beside that, I'm more of a chaos more than anything. I love chaos. I don't like order. I met a Hungarian potter, and I learned basically everything is possible. And so, I like to push things to its limit. And that's what I do. So beyond that, I don't know what else. I love fire. I think I understand fire much more than clay. So now I basically do a lot of wood firing. Basically, and I'm not sure if it culturally have anything to do with me. The one thing that I have a problem with is see myself, and so I don't appreciate looking at myself in the picture. But I try not to see myself as an individual. So when I first met my wife, this is Nina. She's Swedish, and I first met her, and I take all the mirror, anything that have reflection, out of my house because I don't see that way. And so the one thing I believe, I'm much more of an educator than an artist, because I don't see art like art. It's just a self-expression to me. So I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this, but anyway, most of the people who know me long enough, they kind of understand that part of me. But as you can see, my background, I'm a collector of things, of people, mostly people things. And that's it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Next up is Veronica.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm from Mexico, and thank you, OPA, for having me here and for organizing this. And well, what I have to tell you is I grew up in Mexico. I moved to US when I was doing painting. And I was doing painting, I was doing printmaking, and I entered a community college to do printmaking. And the class across the street from me, from printmaking, was pottery. And I was like, oh my God, I totally had to do this. How do I go in? And I was taking the classes without credit, so I had to go and ask for permission to take that class. And I was not speaking very well English. Well, also now I don't speak very well English, but at that time I was really don't speaking English well. And I went, and a funny thing was that I asked the teacher if I could join the class. And because that class was very popular and was very full with a lot of people that wanted to go in, he say, well, you had to twist my arm. And I was like, what does he want me to do? I was like, coming from Mexico, that expression was like, now what? So of course I learned that expression there, and I was like, okay. And he was like, oh, you don't know what I'm talking about, right? And then, well, I joined that class and I learned a lot of things there. That was in Dallas, Texas. And then after that, I keep painting. I was doing painting, paper mache, printmaking, and ceramics, and I was selling that in places. I was going to shows. I moved to Santa Barbara, California, and I was showing that in the same table, and the people was so confused, like, who's the artist? You know, there's paper mache, there's printmaking, there's ceramics, there's everything. And I keep doing that, and then I moved from Dallas, then I moved to Santa Barbara, then from Santa Barbara, I moved to here, to Portland. And then here in Portland, the father of my kids at the time, my husband, was working for Nike, and we moved to China. And in China, I was still painting. And then when I was living in China, then we moved to Malaysia, to Kuala Lumpur. And when I was in Kuala Lumpur, I got into this cultural shock that I didn't know what to paint, because in Malaysia, there's like 3 cultures, like Chinese, Malay, and Indian in the same city. So it was very difficult for me to paint something, because in China, I paint Chinese people in the street, and I was painting what I was seeing. But in Malaysia, I couldn't focus at all. So I went to a ceramic place just to clear my mind and to try to focus on what to do. And from that experience, I ended up buying my kiln, my wheel, and then I start carrying that all over the world. Because after Malaysia, I moved to Vietnam, to Ho Chi Minh City, with the kiln and a wheel and a house full of things. And then I moved to India, to Chennai. And I love India. I think I was Indian in my other life. When I arrived there, I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is me. And then from India, I went to China, to Xiamen, to another different city than before, because before I lived in China too. And then after that, I moved to Portland, and I never thought I was going to be a potter here in Portland, because there's so many and the material is so available. Over there in Malaysia, it was difficult to get materials, and there was not many. And that would make me like special, right? But here, it was not the case. So when I arrived here to Portland, is when I start to do more things like the one that you're seeing right now on the screen, that is more like my culture. I start to inspire myself in the magical realism, which is called Realismo Mágico in Mexico. I think what difference the Mexican art from other arts is that we have that magical thing going on. Even in movies, you can see that. In real life, you can see that. We have like this magical thing that we believe on, like the Day of the Dead and things like that. And that's what inspired me. But these pieces, some of these pieces that you see, they are inspired on the alebrijes from Mexico, which is sculptures that they do in the south of Mexico, in Oaxaca. and then from that, I transformed them into contemporary art, making them my own. Like, for example, this one is an armadillo that really doesn't have anything from armadillo, but I start creating something from an animal, and then it looks like something else that I want to do. This is what my culture is, but also is about my family, because the pieces that I do, they always have to do something with nature. And that comes from my family. That was, my father was a scientist, and my mom was studying also biology, and all my family's been into mushrooms and nature, and they taught me how to love nature. And I try to inspire that with my pieces, like try to make people love nature with that. I hearing everybody here, and oh my God, I really talented artist. I love all your work, everybody. And I was remembering that, yeah, I also like to teach. Lately, I've been going to schools to give classes, and I love to do that, because it's more what you can learn from students. I think they teach me more sometimes that I can taught them, and it's great. It's the great that I can teach something to them. Sometimes I teach painting and sometimes ceramics. My work is in Alberta Street Gallery and in other parts here in Portland. Let me see. I think that's about it. I just will wait for the questions if there's any at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. I have to apologize. I missed some of T's images. And yes, I've got all these. This is irregular, but I'm going to be irregular here and just kind of go back to look at some of T's images that I didn't project in the studio. And there we go. Okay, just wanted to make sure we were able to see him at work, and beautiful. I love being able to see the work when you all are talking. And we are now going to move on to Lily.
Hi, I'm Lily Liu. First of all, let me say thank you, Stephanie, to including me to this wonderful show and to share my story with all of you. I feel like I was also grow up in China during the Cultural Revolution time. So art for me is unknown because all our houses all just mouse photos. So I didn't experience seeing art until I was adult. And then 1994, I moved to Canada. So I went to college and pursue a psychology degree. So at my last year before I get psychology, I had electives I can take. So I took a basic design art class. So that just opened the door for me to pursue art. But then since I wasn't educated like in the art field in China, I got lots of questions about like what I know about Chinese ceramics and all that. So I went to did one summer research. So I was really drawn to porcelain. Then I came back and said, all I want to work is a porcelain because the quality. So fast forward, at beginning, I did all functional wear. So when I got to grad school, I had a surgery I couldn't throw. So I started looking like other ways to work with the same media, but change the body of work. And the second semester in grad school, I was one of my advisor was textile, the head of textile. So she looked at my work, and because I'm interested in repetitive work, carving and leaving marks on the surface. So she invited me to the textile studio. So that opened another door for me, because I'm thinking what I draw into porcelain is the translucent quality. So, and then when I was studying psychology, I was also interested in people's personality and how to get, you can't read the people by just look at them, but you have to connect them, have to talk to them to know what that person is, or what kind of connection you can make. So when I work with the porcelain, that kind of that translucent quality to give me ideas, like how do I combine this two ideas together? So I'm more interested in the image or the quality underneath the surface. So I work with something that can draw people closer to invest, just like we deal with people. We need to talk, we need to communicate to build this connection. So that's about my work. Thank you all.
Wait, we didn't finish your images. Can you tell us what this is?
Oh, this one is a part of, it's interesting. So when I started in textiles, my clay work become a really thin, has this very fiber-like quality. And this piece of work is 1,000 little drops, about 1 inch tall, but 2 inch long. I make it into loops because I wasn't throwing. So I wanted to make installation. So this was at my grad school, one installation work. So this body of work is all layered of porcelain slips with the color slip in between, sandwiched in between. So if you lit it or it backlit it, you can see the image. So that's kind of the idea of you need to draw the viewers closer to invest what's in there. So by just looking the surface, it seems that something is there, but not quite there. So not all you see. So you really have to get closer to see the layers, what's underneath, what's on the surface, and then to understand that as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just make sure I can, yep, sorry. Okay. There we go. Thank you, Lily. That's great. And last but not least, Dwayne.
Hey, my name's Dwayne Sackey. I make pottery, functional pottery for the most part. I guess I'm biracial. My dad's from Ghana, West Africa. He grew up there, moved to Nigeria when he was 18, and then came to the States when he was 23. My mom grew up in Portola Valley, California, like the Bay Area, went to UC Berkeley. And so I feel like I come from a place of, two very different worlds and understandings and ways of being and navigating the world. And I feel like I've always been kind of in between a lot of things. I was born in Oakland, raised in Berkeley, grew up in a space where it was kind of really eclectic, and I had a lot of white friends and a lot of Black friends, and I grew up with a pretty big Nigerian family, like my mom's best friend, and I don't know what I'm trying to say about all that, but I think I just had a lot of different cultures going on growing up, and didn't really feel like any of them were mine, honestly. And I feel like I definitely found skateboarding at a young age, and kind of had that as my language and my way of relating to other people. And I injured my knee. That kind of messed up my skateboarding career. I still like to do it for fun, but I wasn't going to go pro or anything, and it got a little bit depressing. And ceramics really has been great for forming community and making friends and communicating and connecting and feeling like I'm part of something. And so I think that my work is influenced by a lot of the things that I do, from the wood-fired work that I think I really appreciate because of my time in the mountains, backpacking from a young age and spending time in nature. I think I'm fascinated by these really out of control, almost sublime effects you can see in the work. And I've been working with a really dark clay and white slip and vibrant glazes, which are inspired by, or I think I appreciate them because of my appreciation for African textiles, West African textiles, and the bright colors that the Ghanaian people wear, and the tropics, and that high contrast, bold, tropical kind of vibe. So I guess I've just been kind of experimenting and playing and making things that I think are beautiful and that I enjoy, and not trying to go in any direction in particular, really just enjoying it and figuring out what I like and hoping other people like it too. I definitely am I'm a potter, and I make pots for a living, so I definitely try and make stuff that is going to sell. Seems to be that what I like, other people like too. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little boring, but it's working out so far. These are fun. That's kind of like the wildest thing that I've been making. I didn't think people would want to buy them, but they were really excited about how I make them. And so I'm hoping people like it, how I make it so much that they want to buy them. They're really fun to make, and I think they look good. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Been working with clay almost 10 years now, and it's taken me from Berkeley down to Santa Cruz Community College, had a really good time there, up to Mount Hood Community College, and then to Oregon College of Art and Craft. And I feel like I've definitely met a lot of good people, made a lot of connections, and really just had a fulfilling time working with clay and with the clay community.
Thank you. Well, I'm just really like so appreciative of you all openly sharing your experience with clay and cultural interconnections. And this is the place where, and I see a number of wonderful positive statements in the chat, thanking people for their presentations. But I wonder if anybody has any questions, if you might write it in the chat, and then I could read it out loud, and that way we don't compete for the microphone, because we tend to bump each other off that way. Or if you do want to just ask a question verbally, go for it. I'm actually going to start because I want to ask Dwayne, when did you first get involved with clay?
Well, I mean, senior year of high school, I started working with it every day, but I had a little clay class in 5th grade, and I made a gorilla bank and some pots and a green spray paint can and some brass knuckles, and I was really excited about all the stuff I made, and I always had them around, and so I wanted to do more clay. And senior year of high school, I really got back into it.
Dwayne, how did you make that last cup? This is from Linda.
Oh, I pulled a tall cylinder, a tall skinny cylinder with kind of thick walls, and used a cheese cutter to put 5 vertical facets in it. And then I opened it, and when I was opening it from the inside, it spiraled around my hand.
So, and then from Lori, that new piece, the one that we're talking about, is it a purposeful piece? Is it something you're doing on purpose? And I'm going to add to that, is it functional?
That was my question. Is it a cup? Is it a, like finial on a fence post? I just couldn't tell from one picture.
Yeah, it's the
if
cup.
It has an open.
Yeah, it's a cup. I eat ice cream out of them all the time. I've been drinking some matcha lately, and I'm making them kind of like matcha size and shape. And I eat oatmeal out of them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Good to see you.
Yeah. I have a question for John. John, when did you start working in clay?
That's a very interesting question. So I went to a liberal arts college, and I was a philosophy mathematics major, and I was just not having a very good time. And I heard that the math, my grades were horrible. And I heard that all my friends were coming back saying this pottery class was really good and fun and not too hard. And so I took it and I liked it. And then I thought, well, I'll take another one. And I did. And I took another one and I did. And I graduated and I really had to think about what I wanted to do next. And I realized I graduated with the wrong thing. And then I went back to school for pottery, specifically to get my MFA and teach, because my goal has always been to become a teacher of some sort. And I thought I was going to become a math teacher, but I like pottery a lot more. And I never was really good at math. So I became a pottery teacher.
Awesome. Thank you. I see a question here to T. When did you first wood fire, and what inspired you to build your kiln, and when did you build it?
I'm at U of O. I met a bunch of young students. They fire their kiln. They have a wood kiln, and so I say, I think I can do that. So then I start. Seneca pushing down their drying. And I was teaching at Mott Kern Art Center during the time, and they asked if I want the bricks. They're going to push over there used to be a wood fire, drying kiln. And if I wanted, and so I say I would. And me and a friend of mine went and we stacked all the brick into a pallet and they load it and delivers it. And I always believe that everything is possible and so I just start stacking brick together. People always tell me to go down and look at Hiroshi kiln and look at J kilns and Mount Hood kiln and all that stuff. And, it's just like eating food that somebody already chewed. So I decided to just stack brick together, and I make several mistakes, but I discover a new way and I just do it. And if I ever wrote a book about myself, it'd be the sum of all my luck or good lucks, because it's always been good lucks to me. Always seem to be, or my perception anyway, is at the right place at the right time. And like I say before, I feel that I'm much more of an educator. So I build these with intent of a bunch of people get together and discover fire together. We just finished firing the Nobora Gama, and it's just a bunch of friends get together, we eat and we fire. And inside the kiln, they say, abandon all hope, ye who enter here. So I don't want people to have any expectation. I have an idea one time, but nobody willing to participate on it. Is you fire the whole Anagama kiln and then everything unload on the table. and then everybody vote for one thing. And the one that wins survive. The rest is thrown down my driveway. I'm still working on them to be the one, just one thing, rather than get stuck with having a lot of things that don't serve no purpose to me. That's just my perception anyway.
All right. I see Linda is asking John, in one of your photos, there was a rectangular pattern next to the cup. Did you make that form for texture?
Yes. So I have a laser cutter. So when I make these kind of cups, right, that is all a pattern that I use these. I make my own little wooden boards, right? So this is just a little piece of 1/8 inch plywood that I get at a lumber store. And then my laser cutter can cut a pattern onto there.
Tell them your
A
YouTube
texture.
channel.
So if you go to my YouTube channel, you can see, I think one of my videos, I talk about how to use these boards.
How you make them.
And how I make them. You can see there's another pattern. So I brought 3 examples out to show you. And this is a really new pattern. Nobody's ever had one of these cups yet, but I'm making those right now.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
How do you originate your pattern?
Oh, so that comes from mainly just looking at different ideas. So they're mainly Asian inspired, right? Some of them are really basic, like this geometric pattern can be seen across all cultures, right? It's just a basic geometry pattern. And I'm really drawn to those because they are really overlapping and they're very geometric, right? And then, but they used a lot also in Japanese design. So I'm really using those designs here. This is, I don't know, I guess this is patterns used a lot in Japan, right? But I think all across different parts of Asia as well, right? So I use those a lot. And that's where they're coming from. And I'm kind of exploring my heritage through these patterns, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
And from Amy for Anshula, which state in India are you from?
I am basically from the north, but I've lived all over. I have lived for many years in Bombay and then many years in the southern state of Bangalore, city in Bangalore. So I would say that I'm from all over actually. I cannot specifically say which state, which place.
Great.
My father was in the government and he was in a transferable job. So we would keep moving from place to place.
Thank you. All right. For T from Julie, what inspires your forms? They're beautiful. I've admired your work for a long time.
Let me see. I mean, my background is sculpture. So form is always, to me, is what is it? I'm still seeking for the perfect form. I have not. The only thing I can say is I like to push things to very far. So most of the time when I throw on the wheel, I try to push that one particular shape or form until it collapses. Then I know where that edge is. And then the next one, I think if most of you, if you know me long enough, for me, the joy of doing is to push the clay to it. But then after it's finished, I don't really care for it. Most of the people during the firing, they see that I have wall and wall of wood fire pots that just is sitting around. And for me, I just having them. I sell enough to make a living, so I don't need to. That part I don't really keep on pushing. Nature. Yes. Okay. My wife just reminded me. Yes, I do inspire through nature. Texture. I like texture from art fruit. Like my favorite thing is, I'm not sure if you know jackfruit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love texture. I do all kinds of. I would grab anything and go to my bandsaw and I cut it until it can't stand it anymore, and then I apply to the work. I'm like I say, I love chaos, and so when I applied it and I beat it up and re-pushing it until it impressed me. And then for me, it's always clay is always 30 cents a pound, so it's not a big deal to me. And the beautiful thing about clay is that you can always re-wedge it. So I just push them until they collapse, and then push some more and until it collapses some more. So that's it, basically it.
Awesome. Thank you. We've got a question from Aubrey. Who will be showing at Showcase?
I am. Nina saw. Oh,
awesome.
Yeah.
Anshula and Dwayne, I see your hands. Wait, I can't see everybody. Ooh.
Me too.
Veronica. And great. We know we can find your work there. I have a question for Veronica. Do you do purely sculptural work? Some of the sculptures looked like they were also vessels. Do you do pottery as well as sculptural?
Yes, I also do plates and bowls and regular things. But I kind of like to do more. They're not kind of like sculptures because you can even use them for things. Some of them, they're bases that you can put like garlics inside or potpourri or things like that. So they kind of have like the sculpture, but also you can use them in the kitchen for anything because they are all the glazes are food safe and everything. Yeah, I do plates and all kinds of things too, but I kind of like to do more the other ones.
Awesome. And there's a question here from Julie for Linda. Does your cooking inspire your clay work, Linda?
Yeah. In Lebanese cooking, presentation is really an important part of, it's like the visual appeal. And so my mom always paid a lot of attention to cooking, to presentation of the food. So I like to make beautiful plates. And I have, those star plates, the 8-pointed star. I have like a stack of them in my dining room that I use for serving when I have company, and I've sold a bunch of them too. So no, it's and like when you put out a plate of hummus or baba ganoush, you make a beautiful design on it and sprinkle pomegranate seeds. It's all part of the beauty. Yes.
Mm. Mm. I love it. I'm seeing so many positive statements in the chat, statements of appreciation and admiration. I feel really grateful for everybody who is here. Are there any questions that people still have that you'd like to ask? If not, I think this has been a very full evening. I thank each one of the artists and every attendee who came this evening. It's been a rich experience, and I hope we can do more of this with OPA. And I hope that you'll come to Showcase and get a real big immersion into what OPA membership is capable of creating.
And Stephanie, you might want to tell people that all of us have our work in this governor's mansion it's up until middle of October, right?
It'll be the end of September.
Okay.
But yes, the governor's mansion has the Focus on Diversity show, and it's in the formal dining room. And if you'd like to see it, you have to contact the governor's mansion and send an email to, I'm not exactly sure what the email address is, but if you go on the website, you'll see it there. And you can always set up an appointment to take a peek. They might start having public hours, in which case you would be able to have easier access. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for participating and for coming. It's been a wonderful evening.
Thank you.